The ancient, cobbled street of Balat is a steep, winding ribbon of color, a stark contrast to the glittering world just across the Golden Horn. The morning sun, still low and gentle, paints the ramshackle wooden houses in shades of faded ochre, cobalt, and rose. Elif Yilmaz navigates the uneven stones with the practiced ease of a native, her worn leather satchel, heavy with brushes and solvents, bumping rhythmically against her hip. The air is thick with the scent of freshly baked simit from a corner bakery, the salty breath of the Bosphorus, and the faint, ever-present perfume of centuries-old dust. From an open window, the melancholic strings of a saz drift down, a soundtrack to the neighborhood's sleepy awakening. Her destination is her studio, a small, sun-drenched room on the top floor of a historic building that groans and settles like a living creature. Inside, the chaos is a familiar comfort. Canvases lean against whitewashed walls, and jars of meticulously organized pigments line makeshift shelves. The heart of the room, bathed in a perfect north-facing light, is the easel holding her current obsession, a fragile 19th-century portrait of an Ottoman lady. Elif's fingers, though calloused, trace the gilded edge of the frame with a reverence that borders on worship. This is her sanctuary, her kingdom of fractured beauty. Here, she is not poor. She is a time traveler, a surgeon of history, piecing together forgotten stories with infinite patience. Her phone, a cheap, cracked thing, vibrates violently on the wooden stool, shattering the peaceful silence. The number is unknown, but the area code screams of power, of steel and glass towers in Levant. She answers with a cautious, hello. A clipped, efficient female voice asks, "This is S from Demir Holdings." "Mr. Demir requires your immediate services. A piece for his new corporate collection requires assessment before the acquisition signing today. A car will be at your location in 20 minutes. Demir Holdings. Kaan Demir. The name is a monument in Istanbul, synonymous with impossible wealth and ruthless ambition. I today. But I have a prior commitment, this portrait. The fee will be triple your standard rate. The line goes dead. Panic and a flicker of indignation war within her. But triple her rate, that would cover 3 months of her studio rent, maybe even allow her to replace the ancient, wheezing heater that barely fought off the winter chill. She looks at the Ottoman lady's serene, painted eyes. "Forgive me," she whispers, her voice barely audible over the sudden, frantic beating of her own heart. She carefully, swiftly, packs her most delicate tools into a custom-made foam-lined case, her movements sharp with a nervous energy she cannot quell. The car is not a car. It is a silent, black leviathan that looks profoundly out of place on the narrow Balat street. The driver, a man in an immaculate suit, holds the door open without a word. The interior is a tomb of chilled, perfumed air and soft leather. As they glide away from the vibrant, messy life of her neighborhood, Elif feels a door closing behind her, the familiar world shrinking in the rearview mirror until it vanishes entirely. They arrive at a fortress of steel and reflective glass, the Demir Holdings headquarters piercing the Istanbul sky. The lobby is a cavernous space of polished marble, so shiny she can see her own reflection. A small, anxious woman in a simple linen dress, staring back from the floor. People in razor-sharp business attire move with purpose, their heels clicking a staccato rhythm of importance. She is ushered into a private elevator that whispers its way to the penthouse, her stomach lurching with the sudden ascent. The doors slide open into silence. This is not an office, it is an eyrie. One entire wall is a single, seamless pane of glass, framing a breathtaking, almost violent panorama of the Bosphorus, the bridges arcing like delicate necklaces, the continents of Europe and Asia sprawling at its feet. The room is vast, sparsely furnished with low-slung, brutalist furniture, the air cold and still. And there, standing with his back to her, silhouetted against that immense window, is a man. He turns slowly. Kaan Demir. He is younger than she imagined, but his youth is carved from ice and granite. His face is all sharp, unforgiving angles, a blade of a nose, a jaw so taut it seems to ache. His eyes, the color of a winter storm over the sea, sweep over her, and she feels not like a person, but an object, an inconvenient smudge on his pristine world. He doesn't greet her. He simply gestures with a sharp, impatient hand towards a small painting resting on a velvet-draped easel in the center of the room. The Caravaggio attribution is disputed. His voice is low, cold, devoid of any warmth or welcome. I need your confirmation. The contract for the entire European merger hinges on this piece's provenance. Be quick. The air in the penthouse is so still, and cold Elif feels it crystallizing in her lungs. Kaan Demir's command hangs between them, an unspoken threat woven into the sterile silence. Her heart is a frantic bird beating against the cage of her ribs, but she wills her hands to stop trembling as she approaches the easel. The painting is small, no larger than a ledger book, but it seems to suck all the light from the room into its dark, dramatic depths. It depicts a young boy, his face half obscured in shadow, his hand outstretched towards a sliver of celestial light. The brushwork is bold, the chiaroscuro stark and dramatic. Her professional instincts ignite, a familiar, calming fire that momentarily smothers her panic. She sets her case on the floor, the click of the latches unnaturally loud in the vast space. She can feel Kaan's stormy eyes on her back, a physical pressure between her shoulder blades. Your tools, Miss Yilmaz, he says, his voice a low rumble that vibrates through the polished concrete floor. I trust you came prepared to be thorough. Demir, she replies, her voice surprisingly steady. She does not look at him. Her world has shrunk to the cracked, aged surface of the oil paint. She pulls on a pair of pristine white cotton gloves, the fabric a second skin. Her first touch is not with a tool, but with her eyes scanning the craquelure, the fine web of cracks in the varnish. She leans in, so close her breath fogs faintly on the protective glass, the scent of old linseed oil and dust filling her nostrils. From her case, she extracts a high-powered magnifying loupe. The world dissolves into a landscape of pigment and time. She traces the brushstrokes, searching for the artist's signature energy, the specific, almost violent application of paint that was Caravaggio's trademark. She loses herself in the examination, the world outside this small rectangle of canvas fading away. The pressure of Kaan's gaze, the immense weight of the city beyond the glass, the dizzying reason she is here, it all melts into the background hum of her concentration. She moves to examine the edge of the canvas, where it meets the ornate, gilded frame. And that is when she sees it. A tiny, almost imperceptible anomaly in the texture of the paint along the lower border. It is too smooth, too uniform. Her breath catches. She fumbles in her case for a different tool, a slender, fiber-optic light. Her hands, usually so sure, feel clumsy under his silent, judging observation. Is there a problem? Kaan's voice is closer now. He has moved to stand just a few feet away, his arms crossed over his broad chest. The scent of his cologne, something dark and smoky like oud and leather, cuts through the smell of antiquity. I need to check something, she murmurs, her focus absolute. She angles the light, peering through the loupe. The beam reveals what her naked eye could not see. A faint, ghostly line beneath the top layer of paint, a telltale sign of a later restoration, an overpainting meant to conceal. Her stomach plummets. This isn't just a disputed attribution, this is a deliberate deception. Just then, the penthouse doors whisper open. A tall, stunningly beautiful woman glides in, her entrance as silent and commanding as a shark cutting through water. Selin Aydin. Her dress is a sheath of liquid silver, and her smile is a perfectly crafted weapon. She moves to Kaan's side, placing a possessive hand on his arm. Darling, the board is getting impatient. They're ready to sign, they just need your art expert's rubber stamp. Her eyes, the color of cold honey, slide over Elif, dismissing her as irrelevant. Surely this won't take much longer. It's a beautiful piece. She looks from the painting, to Kaan's impatient face, to Selin's placid, mocking smile. The words stick in her throat. To speak them is to detonate the room. But her integrity, the very core of who she is, will not allow her to lie. She takes a shaky step back, her heel catching on the uneven leg of the velvet-draped easel. Time seems to warp, stretching into a horrifying slow motion. The easel wobbles, a precarious teetering that feels like a lifetime. Elif's hands fly out, grasping at empty air. Kaan's eyes widen, a flash of stunned fury. Selin lets out a sharp, theatrical gasp. The easel gives way with a sickening crack of old wood, and the small, dark, priceless painting sails through the air. It spins, a doomed, weightless thing before it connects, corner first, with the sharp, polished granite edge of a coffee table. The sound is not a crash, but a wet, final crunch, the sound of centuries of history and millions of dollars shattering in an instant. Silence. Thick, absolute, suffocating silence. The painting lies on the floor, the canvas split the boy. The silence that follows the painting's destruction is not merely an absence of sound. It is a physical entity, thick and heavy, pressing down on the room until Elif's ears pop. She stands frozen, a statue of horror, her gaze locked on the wreckage at her feet. The small canvas is torn cleanly across the boy's outstretched hand. The split a grotesque scar through the centuries-old pigment. A single, long sliver of the ornate gilded frame lies snapped beside it like a broken bone. The ghost of the impact still seems to vibrate in the chilled air. Kaan Demir does not move. He does not shout. The stillness that emanates from him is more terrifying than any outburst. His face, already carved from granite, seems to turn to pure obsidian, his stormy eyes narrowing into slits of pure, undiluted fury. The temperature in the room seems to drop another 10 degrees. The word is a low, guttural scrape of sound, so filled with venom it makes Elif flinch. You clumsy, useless. Her perfectly manicured hand flies to her mouth, her eyes wide with feigned horror. Oh my God. Kaan, the deal. The European merger, it's gone. All because of this. She doesn't finish, letting the unspoken insult, asterisk peasant, fool, nobody asterisk, hang in the air, her contemptuous gaze sweeping over Elif's simple dress and worn satchel. Elif's own voice is a strangled whisper, trapped in her constricting throat. It was an accident, the leg of the easel, it was unstable. The excuses sound pathetic, even to her own ears. Her professional pride lies in ruins alongside the painting. She wants to sink to her knees, to gather the shattered pieces, to try, somehow, to reverse the irreversible. But his gaze pins her in place, a butterfly on a collector's corkboard. An accident, Kaan repeats, his voice dangerously quiet. He takes a slow, deliberate step forward, each footfall a thunderclap on the polished concrete. That accident just cost this company 100 million euros. That accident just handed my biggest rival a victory on a silver platter. That accident was your responsibility. He is standing directly over her now, his tall frame casting her in a long, cold shadow. She can see the furious pulse beating at his temple, smell the cold, smoky scent of his cologne mingled with the acrid smell of her own fear. Do you have any concept of what you have done? She will not give this man, or this woman, the satisfaction of seeing her break. I was trying to do my job, she forces out, her voice gaining a shred of defiant strength. The painting, it's a fake. A very good one, but a fake. There's overpainting along the lower border, a deliberate concealment. I was trying to confirm it when I fell. Do you expect me to believe that? A convenient lie to cover your catastrophic incompetence. Elif insists, her hands curling into fists at her sides. Selin lets out a derisive, tinkling laugh. Oh, how very convenient indeed. She destroys a masterpiece, and then claims it was a forgery all along. Who would ever believe you? A nobody from Balat, against the word of international art authenticators. He turns away from her, a dismissive gesture that feels more final than any shout. He pulls out his phone, his thumb stabbing at the screen. Cancel the signing. Tell the board there's been an incident. He listens for a moment, his back rigid. No excuses. Just cancel it. He ends the call and turns back to Elif, his decision made, his fate for her sealed. You will work off this debt, he declares, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Every last euro of it. You will resign any other commissions. You will come to work for me, personally, as a live-in conservator at my estate. You will restore every piece in my private collection. You will maintain them. You will do whatever menial art-related task I demand until I decide your debt is paid. You can't be serious. That could take years. Consider it the interest on your staggering incompetence. If you refuse, I will sue you for damages. You will lose your studio, your home, everything. You will spend the next decade in a debtor's prison. This is not an offer, Miss Yilmaz. It is a sentence. The vibrant colors of. The world tilts on its axis. The vibrant colors of her life in Balat, the cobalt houses, the smell of ciment, the sound of the saws, bleed away, replaced by the stark, monochrome reality of this prison of glass and steel. Kaan Demir's ultimatum hangs in the air, a guillotine blade waiting to fall. Elif can only stare at him, her mind reeling, the weight of 100 million euros crushing the air from her lungs. She sees the cold, unyielding finality in his storm-gray eyes and nose, with a sickening certainty that he is not bluffing. A car will take you to your residence, Kaan says, the word residence dripping with contempt. You have 1 hour to collect whatever things you deem necessary. You will then be brought to the Demir estate. S will provide you with the terms of your employment. He turns his back on her, a definitive dismissal, and walks toward the panoramic window, effectively erasing her from his existence. Selin offers a final, triumphant, razor-thin smile before following him, her silver dress shimmering like a predator's scales. The silent, black Leviathan returns her to Balat. The journey is a blur, a nauseating slide from one reality to another. The familiar, comforting chaos of her neighborhood now feels like a dream she is being forcibly awakened from. In her sun-drenched studio, the Ottoman lady on the easel seems to gaze at her with pity. The air, once thick with the scent of turpentine and possibility, now smells of loss. With trembling, frantic hands, she shoves a few changes of clothes, her most precious personal brushes, and a single, faded photograph of her late father into a small, worn duffel bag. Each item feels like a relic from a life she is being forced to bury. She runs her fingers over the gilded frame of the portrait she was restoring, a silent, aching goodbye to her sanctuary, her kingdom of fractured beauty. The Demir estate is not a home. It is a fortress perched on the edge of the Bosphorus, all sharp, modern lines and imposing walls. It is a monument to cold power, a direct assault on the warm, organic decay of Balat just across the water. The iron gates swing open soundlessly, swallowing the car whole. She is met not by Kaan, but by his housekeeper, a severe woman with eyes like chips of flint, who wordlessly leads her through cavernous, echoing hallways. The air is scentless, climate-controlled, devoid of history or life. Her new quarters are a spacious, beautifully appointed room with a breathtaking view of the water. It is the most luxurious cage imaginable. The bed is draped in silks, the ensuite bathroom gleams with marble, but the door clicks shut with the finality of a lock, even if it isn't literally locked. She is a prisoner in a palace. Days blur into a monotonous rhythm of silent, tense labor. Kaan's private collection is vast, stored in a specially climate-controlled wing of the house that feels more like a museum vault than a home. He assigns her a crumbling, water-damaged 16th-century maritime map first, a test of her skill and her obedience. They speak only when necessary, his communications delivered as clipped, precise commands. The varnish on the Tintoretto is clouding. See to it. Or, the Mogul miniatures require rehousing. Begin tomorrow. She is a ghost in his house, a specter of shame and anger haunting its opulent halls. Yet, during the long, silent hours of restoration, she catches glimpses of another man buried beneath the ice. She notices the way his stern expression softens, almost imperceptibly, when he thinks no one is looking, as he stares at a particular landscape of the Anatolian plains. She finds a forgotten, well-worn copy of Rumi's poetry tucked away on a shelf in the library, its pages dog-eared and filled with marginalia in a younger, less cynical hand. These are fleeting, fragile cracks in his granite facade, and she hates herself for noticing them, for feeling a treacherous flicker of curiosity about the ghost that haunts this haunted man. One evening, storm clouds gather over the Bosphorus, bruising the sky with shades of purple and gray. Elif is working late, painstakingly inpainting a tiny loss of pigment on the wing of a bird in a Persian miniature. The only sound is the soft whisper of her sable brush on the paper and the distant rumble of thunder. Kaan enters the vault silently, his presence announced only by a shift in the air, a disturbance in the room's energy. He has been drinking. She can see the slight looseness in his posture, the dark, unfocused intensity in his gaze. He stands behind her, watching her work, his proximity setting every nerve in her body on edge. The scent of whiskey and oud is thick around him. "You are very quiet," he murmurs, his voice a low, rough vibration in the quiet room. "You move through this house like a whisper. It's infuriating." Elif freezes, the delicate sable brush poised millimeters above the miniature's surface. His voice, roughened by whiskey and something darker, slithers through the silence of the vault, raising goosebumps on her arms. She can feel the heat of his body standing too close behind her, a disturbing contrast to the room's sterile chill. The air thickens, charged with the approaching storm and his unpredictable mood. "I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Demir," she replies, her voice carefully neutral, her eyes fixed on the intricate wing of the painted bird. "I am here to work. To be quiet and efficient, as you demanded." It echoes off the glass cases, holding priceless ceramics. "Is that what you tell yourself? That this is just a transaction?" He moves around the conservation table, his movements less precise than usual, his tall frame swaying slightly. He leans against the edge of the table, crowding her space, his stormy eyes boring into her. The scent of expensive whiskey is potent on his breath, mingling with his usual oud and leather cologne to create an intoxicating, dangerous aroma. "You watch. I see you. You watch me with those judgmental eyes, you study this house, you piece me together like one of your broken artifacts." He is too perceptive, even in his inebriated state. "I am an art restorer. Observation is my profession," she deflects, finally meeting his gaze. The fury she is accustomed to is gone, replaced by a raw, bleak intensity that is somehow more frightening. "Don't," he warns, his voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial growl. "Don't hide behind your profession with me. Not tonight." He gestures vaguely around the vault, at the accumulated wealth of centuries. All of this, it's just gilding on a rotten frame. A pretty lie. You, of all people, should recognize a forgery when you see one. A clap of thunder suddenly booms directly overhead, so loud it seems to shake the very foundations of the fortress-like estate. The lights flicker, a momentary dance of shadows that transforms his sharp features into a grotesque mask before steadying. In that instant of near darkness, Elif sees not a billionaire tycoon, but a lost, angry boy. The vulnerability is so stark, so brief, it steals her breath. "Why are you telling me this?" She whispers, her defiance melting into a confused and wary curiosity. "Because you are the only person in this entire gilded cage who hasn't been paid to lie to me." He erupts, pushing off the table and pacing a few steps away before turning back to her, his eyes blazing. "Selin." She lies for a merger. "My board." They lie for profit. "My mother." She lies for legacy. "But you hate me. Your hatred is the most honest thing in my life. It's real. And right now, I am drowning in things that are not real. You think I am a monster. A heartless machine. You have no idea," his voice cracks, and he looks away, towards the window where the storm is now unleashing its fury, sheets of rain lashing against the glass like 1,000 frantic fingers. "You have no idea what it is to be trapped by a past you cannot change, by a debt that can never be repaid." She should remain silent, should fortify the walls around her heart. But the artist in her, the restorer who cannot bear to see something beautiful remain broken, speaks instead. "Everyone has a past, Kaan," she says, his name feeling foreign and forbidden on her tongue. "Everyone has regrets." The space between them evaporates as he closes the distance in 2 long strides. He is so close now she can see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the storm on his clothes. Her breath hitches, trapped in her throat. The world narrows to this moment, to the frantic pounding of her heart and the dark, magnetic pull of his presence. "My regrets," he murmurs, his voice a low, hypnotic thrum that vibrates in the very marrow of her bones, "are cages. And my future is a chain." His eyes drop to her lips, and the air crackles with a tension far more electric than the storm outside. Every instinct screams at her to run, to push him away, to remember who he is and what he has done to her. But she is rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a treacherous, awakening desire that coils hot and tight in her stomach. The anger, the resentment, the immense injustice of her situation, it all dissolves in the furnace of his proximity. He sees the shift in her eyes, the minute relaxation of her defiance, and it is all the permission he needs. He closes the final, infinites. The final, infinitesimal space between them vanishes. Kaan's mouth crashes down onto hers, not with tenderness, but with a raw, desperate hunger that feels more like a punishment than a caress. It is a collision of worlds, a battle fought on the precipice of a storm. Elif's hands, which had been frozen at her sides, fly up to push against the solid, unyielding wall of his chest, but the gesture is weak, her resolve dissolving under the onslaught of sensation. His kiss is a brand, searing away the last vestiges of her anger, replacing it with a terrifying, all-consuming fire. The taste of him, whiskey, oud, and the salt of his own unspoken torment, is a dark, addictive poison. A small, broken sound, half protest, half surrender, escapes her throat, and it seems to ignite him further. His arms wrap around her, one hand splaying against the small of her back, crushing her to him, while the other tangles in the loose strands of her hair, tilting her head back to deepen the kiss. The careful, ordered world of the conservation vault, the precise tools, the fragile artifacts, the silent, judging eyes of painted portraits, fades into a blur of heat and need. The rational part of her mind screams in protest, a distant alarm buried under the roaring in her ears. This is the man who owns her, who humiliated her, who holds her future hostage. But the woman in her, the one who has been alone and fighting for so long, is starved for this connection, for this violent, undeniable proof that she is alive. Her fingers uncurl against his chest, her traitorous hands clutching the fine, crisp linen of his shirt, anchoring herself in the storm. When he finally breaks the kiss, they are both breathing in ragged, shallow gasps, their foreheads resting together. The air is thick with the scent of their shared breath, of rain-lashed stone, and of awakened desire. His eyes are dark pools of chaos, the storm outside now mirrored perfectly within them. He doesn't speak. He simply looks at her, his gaze searching her face as if trying to memorize the flush on her cheeks, the swollen softness of her lips, the dazed confusion in her eyes. He brushes a thumb across her jawline, a gesture so unexpectedly gentle it makes her heart clench painfully. Then, as if a switch has been flipped, the intensity in his eyes hardens back into its familiar, guarded granite. He releases her so abruptly, she stumbles back a step, the cold air of the vault rushing in to replace the heat of his body, raising goosebumps on her skin. The loss is physical, a sudden aching emptiness. He turns away, running a hand through his already disheveled hair, his broad back rigid. "This changes nothing," he says, his voice rough, stripped of its earlier rawness, now layered with a fresh coat of ice. He doesn't look at her as he speaks, his words directed at the tempest raging beyond the window. "You are still my employee. Your debt remains. This was a moment of weakness. A mistake." Shame, hot and acute, floods through her, burning her cheeks. How could she have been so foolish? How could she have forgotten, even for a second, the brutal power dynamic that defined their every interaction? She had been a momentary distraction, a vessel for his drunken melancholy. Nothing more. She straightens her spine, pulling the tattered shreds of her dignity around her like a cloak. "Of course," she replies, her voice miraculously steady, though it feels as fragile as the ancient paper she restores. "A mistake. I won't mention it again." She turns back to the conservation table, her movements stiff and mechanical. She picks up her sable brush, but her hand is trembling so violently, She cannot possibly continue the delicate work. The painted bird on the miniature seems to mock her with its silent, frozen flight. He watches her for a long, tense moment, his expression unreadable. The only sound is the relentless drumming of the rain. "Finish your work here," he commands, his tone once more that of the distant, untouchable CEO. "My driver will take you into the city tomorrow. I'm acquiring a new piece from a private gallery. You will provide your assessment." She stands there for a long time, staring at the closed door, her mind a whirlwind of confusion, self-loathing, and a treacherous, lingering heat. The kiss felt like the beginning of something, a crack in the foundation of their war. But his dismissal felt like an ending. She touches her fingers to her swollen lips, the memory of his taste a brand she cannot wash away. The assignment for tomorrow is a return to the real world, a world of transactions and assessments. But as she stands there, surrounded by the silent treasures of his gilded cage, she knows with a terrifying certainty that nothing will.